MEGADETH.
And that was Overkill's video.
The most memeable band on the planet when it comes to metal, thanks to this ginger bombshell right here. So today, we're going to have a little look back over their entire back catalogue, go over every single album, and then we're going to cap things off with an album ranking. You know how everybody loves taking this purely subjective thing and trying to rank it, trying to pigeonhole it and shove it into some arbitrary list. So, Megadeth is an American thrash metal band formed in Los Angeles in 1983 by vocalist guitarist Dave Mustaine. It's actually his real name. There's not many things that you can really do when you have the name Dave Mustaine. It's like you were born to be either in a metal band or drive monster trucks. So I'm sure you guys know the backstory behind him being kicked out of Metallica. There was some personal differences, or maybe to do with his addiction or something, right? And then some big anime arc started and formed his own band. We're going to go all the way back now to 1985 with Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good.
Before we go any further, I just want to let you know that I'm now offering a 7-day free trial for my online guitar school. Unlock the entire archive of super fun lessons, exercises, and content, as well as Discord access and guided weekly mentoring from me. Click the link in the description below to visit Bradley Hall's Guitar School and sign up today for free.
We start with this lovely little piano piece, but then we get into full thrash mode. It often takes a few albums for a band to really settle into their signature sound, right? They just had it straight from the start. This is what I mean. This is that sort of signature Dave Mustaine bluesy style of riffing. Then, of course, we've got classics like Mechanics. This is maybe the first hot take of the evening. This is the album that Kill 'Em All should have been, with really, really great performances. I think it's mixed far better than Kill 'Em All as well. Album number 2, a little album called He Sells, but Who's Buying It? I'm not really sure if you guys have heard it before. Sort of what you'd come to know as the Megadeth sound was really introduced in this album. Yeah, I think He Sells is really where it all sort of kicked off. It sounds like a fucking keyboard synth. He Sells, the title track. I guess this was probably their breakthrough song, which is unusual because it's a very, very odd song. It's just a very unusual song. I need to click on the Wikipedia article. Oh, fuck. That just fucking jump scared me. Holy shit. So, Chris Poland left the band at this point and was replaced by Jeff Young, which in my opinion is probably the weakest lead guitarist they ever had. The songwriting is okay. It does feel like a step back from Peace Sells. In My Darkest Hour is obviously one of the best Megadeth songs. This is obviously the highlight of the album. Just the way it builds is absolutely perfect. Ooh. You can really feel his heart wrenching, when he's singing this. Ugh. There's not too much to say about this album. It's fine. They somehow went from this, pretty much mid-album to probably the greatest metal album of all time. I'll tell you how, with the introduction of this curly-haired little ruffian. I mean, look at him. The sound is just, so fucking different. What's going on in, the riffs and the solos. It's just, way more fucking big brain. Here you have Holy Wars with the... This album is just so weird. It's like they just took the handbook of traditional songwriting and just fucking lobbed it out the nearest window. And of course, the most famous metal guitar solo of all time. This is probably my favorite riff of all time. The groove is just it's infinite. Time to move on to Countdown. Obviously, this came out, a year after the Black Album. It really became apparent that they were sort of playing catch-up with what Metallica were trying to do. And it's obvious that Dave heard this and wanted to pursue this. Try and chase that bigger audience that Metallica were capturing. The songwriting is a lot more straightforward. I guess they succeeded, on some songs. Symphony is obviously, one of their most commercially successful songs.
Acting like a robot.
To take his bow. Dave Mustaine's performance is easily what makes this album a classic, I think.
Most valued possession.
And then we have Euthanasia. So I kind of feel on Countdown, they were experimenting with this new sound of slowing things down and concentrating more on the songwriting and the vocals. But in Euthanasia, they're doing the same thing, but I think they really refined their sound and did it a lot better. Then of course you got Tout Le Monde. The first time I heard this song, literally hit replay for half an hour, just listening to it over and over again. Money! Amazing. Fucking love this album, dude. All right, what's after that? Cryptic Writings, that's it. Obviously, they were seeing Metallica have all this huge commercial success. And obviously, like, Dave's like, oh, I want a bit of that. I want a bit of that green as well. I'm going to write some more commercially accessible songs. Kind of lame compared to the last two. Actually, yeah, it is a little bit Enter Sandman. I never really realized that. Holy shit. You've got, like, the tom build-up. Shit, it's like the same tempo as well. It's a step back. I can understand why people were maybe like dissatisfied with it, but I don't think it's terrible. Then moving on, we carry on in the more sort of, you know, watered down, mainstream appealing Megadeth era Breadline. So this song gets a lot of flack because it's the one that apparently Marty was like pushing to have a solo on or something, but the record label told him that no, it's not cool to play solos anymore in this era. And apparently Marty started crying or something, and then this is the reason why he left the band. I have no idea how much of that is true and how much is conjecture. It's like, imagine him just like sitting there like, God, I want to play a solo. I want to think it would fit great. And then the record label's there in like suits and smoking cigars, like, no. And then Marty's just like, and it's obviously like they tried so hard to make like a radio rock song. But it's so catchy. Yeah, it doesn't sound like Megadeth at all, but who cares? It's so good. Yeah, I mean, it's not a good album. Moving on. Our World Needs a Hero. I believe it was at this point that Mr. Friedman moved on to greener pastures. They got in, what's his name? Al Pitrelli, I believe. There are a couple of songs that are like decent on here. Like Dread and the Fugitive Mind is a classic. Overall, this album is a bit of a stinker. Return to Hanger's actually pretty good. One of their first many attempts to write a Hangar 18 Part 2, and there's plenty more of these in future albums. And then you've got this shit, Promises. Oh my god. Yeah, not a fan. Overall, I don't really think this album is very good. But this is the album that Chris Poland came back for. Probably the second greatest lead guitarist the band has ever had. He came back for one album, one night only, and this album is actually really fucking good. And do you reckon the reason is because David Ellison left and Mustaine was like, oh, finally, I got that fucking off my hair. Now let's actually write some fucking music, boys. Oh yeah, this also like starts Megadeth's obsession with having this sort of like news report sound bites over like their song intros.
Firing a Stinger missile. The pilot and all passengers.
They sound like they've got their fucking mojo back. Dave sounds kind of like pissed off again. It's great. First half of this album is really strong. It's cool because I feel like they really combined both of their eras on this album very, very well. Continuing with the 2000s Megadeth era, we're going on to United Abomination. So, this album is actually fucking great as well. Sleepwalker. Let's go. Just everything just sounds like way bigger, right? Oh yeah, this bit. This is like one of the fucking hypest sections on the whole album. It's so good. And what I like about this album is that they really went a more groovy direction, right? Yeah, I think this album fucking rocks, dude. Fucking sick. It's a great album. And yeah, so next up we have Endgame. First to feature big shred man Chris Broderick. But this song, now this is a fucking underrated Megadeth song, 1320. Holy shit. Broom Broom song. But yeah, this album is fucking sick though. More of these fucking sound bites, man. Oh my god, stop. It's just like the sort of the mix of the old school riffing, but with like a bigger sound and like catchy choruses. I love it. And unfortunately, things take a little bit of a nosedive after that. We have 13. I get the feeling that with this and Super Collider, that the band were just kind of like tired and just making these albums like obligatorily, really. And you can just really sense that in the music. So this is the album that Dave Ellison came back for. You know, as soon as Dave Ellison left, the band made like 3 of their best albums ever. And then as soon as he came back, they made like their 2 worst albums.
Murder machine, false majesty, standing perfectly still.
Hell, like not as much care and love went into this one, and Super Collider as well, which we shall swiftly move on to. Yeah, I feel like this album is even worse. It's such a boring album.
Life's decay, persecuting their own.
I like the sort of like the heavy shuffle beat they've got going on. Glide, let's listen to that one. Yeah, I don't know. I just do not enjoy these albums at all. Not very good. Not the good album, no. But the band underwent some rather significant changes afterwards. A certain Brazilian guitarist joined the band, and this is probably one of the best things that could have happened to the band. You know, because Kiko is not only a very technically proficient player, but he also has a very good ear for songwriting. And he's a very, very, like, serious, professional guy, right? And I think that's exactly the sort of person that the band needed. Dystopia, I think, is a fantastic album. That is the most Megadeth sounding riff of all time. The highlight is easily the title track. I think Dystopia is probably a top 5 Megadeth song of all time. I think it's amazing. The overall songwriting, it's a fantastic job. And Dave sounds fantastic. He sounds really good. So moving on, The Sick, The Dying, The Dead, which came out, 2022. Holy moly! I do not think this is anywhere near as good as Dystopia was. That solo was fucking bonkers. That's probably up there with, like, the most insane Megadeth solos of all time. I mean, I'm not being funny, but, like, Kiko fucking carries this album so hard. Well, that's super Mighty Freeman, that was. So yeah, overall, it's not as good as Dystopia. Boys and girls, it is time to rank every single Megadeth studio album in a completely pointless, arbitrary list that achieves nothing and infuriates everyone who watches my channel. I just want to preface this by just sticking Rust in Peace up in God tier. It doesn't even sound like Megadeth. It's like some aliens just came down to Earth and injected themselves into Megadeth's bodies. Where are we putting Killing Is My Business? As far as debut albums go, I think it's really good. Sounds surprisingly good for its time. I think it's a low B. And after that, Peace Sells. Is it an S? I won't try and be a fucking nitpicky edgelord. It is an S tier, isn't it? What am I talking about? So far, so good, so what? I don't really like this album very much. Leaves a lot to be desired. Just like very, very mid. I think it's a C tier for me. So Countdown to Extinction. You've got some really classic songs in there. It has a bunch of like deep cuts that are just like kind of drag it down for me. Oh, this might be a controversial move, but I'm putting it as a high A tier. But the thing is, Peace Sells and Euthanasia. Well, I'll just stick Euthanasia there now. I think it's an easy S tier. Euthanasia took what they were doing on Countdown, but just did it way better. Right, after that, Cryptic Writings. Some very good songs mixed in with a lot of like, not so good. I think this belongs in C tier. I don't think it's as good as So Far, So Good, So What. All right, after that is a Risk. All right, Breadline is Megadeth's best song of all time. That alone is enough to drag it up to God tier. It's a cut above bin. I feel like it's D. Next up, The World Needs a Hero. All right. Now, this album is a stinker. I think it's a D tier album. I think it sucks balls. Right. Now we get into the good shit. Yeah, System Has Failed. So this is the album we were talking about earlier that has a fucking stacked first half and a not so stacked second half. I reckon it's a high B. United Abominations. If this was purely my opinion, this would probably be S tier album for me, honestly. Like, dude, these 5 songs are goated as fuck. I'm going to put it as a solid A tier just behind Countdown. Endgame. Not quite as good as United Abominations, but it's close. I think it's another A tier. It's just here. Right, after that, we have the 2 stinkers, right? 13 and Super Glider. These 2 albums are the sound of a band going through their motions, tired, fed up, can't be bothered. Maybe they had some sort of like contractual obligation with their label or something. There's no classic songs. Right, Dystopia. I don't think we can really put anything else in S just because of the fucking classic states of these 2, but I think it's an easy A tier, right? It's gotta be. And then Sick, The Dying, and the Dead. Where's that going? I reckon it's a C tier. It's just carried by guitar solos alone. All right, I'd say it's just because of like how fucking good In My Darkest Hour is. But yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm going to lock that in, guys. This is the definitive Megadeth album tier list ranking of all time. So yeah, if anyone's curious, I think my personal list would look something like this. I love the 2000s stuff. What do you mean?